But that's the style of mixing, quick mixing. I did like 10 songs in 10 minutes. When you're in a club, to keep them motivated, you kind of fly through it. And back to the technology. Back in the days, I used to play all the music that I wanted to play. I'd have to have like 10 crates. I'd have a big dolly, show up at the club, roll them in, set them all up. And that was really the painful part of DJing. The art of it was great, but lugging around the records was crazy. This invention came out. It's a software program called Serato. It's changed the game for the DJs. If there's 100 real resident working DJs in this town, 99 of them are using this program. There's a few hardcore old schoolers that are still using vinyl, and some guys who use CDs. I prefer having the real turntables. This invention was really stolen from the motion picture industry. If you guys are familiar with film and video, they use time code to reference where they're at in location to the film or video. So this company's burned actual time code onto this vinyl. It's read off a regular needle, fed into this hub, and it tells the information to the computer. It says, okay, this is at the beginning of the song. This is in the middle of the song. This is the end of the song. Oh, he's just queued it up. All based on the time reference on the code. And it's down to the thousandths of the millisecond. When I scratch, it reacts to it. So like this invention is great. Back in the days, we didn't have that. It was not even a mixer with all these inputs. Usually it was just 2 faders up and down. I'll demo some scratch things, and I'll tell you about the history of scratching. I'll load up some music. And you have anything you want to?
No, I'm just going to grab the camera.
Oh, okay.
So the music isn't on the disc?
No, these are regular vinyl records, but instead of music being burned on here, if you listen to it in the headphones, it's just going doo. It's a time code tone. And it's sending that numbers, just zeros and ones constantly, to the computer, and it's telling it where it's at in position and reference.
You just upload all the music onto the computer?
Yeah, all the music. If I have 5,000 songs in this computer, I have about 20,000 in my home computer, and I shuffle them through whatever I'm going to use. But to me, to bring 20,000 records into a club, I'd have to have a U-Haul truck. So it's a great thing. That's the main reason why I use this program. You can queue up things quicker. It doesn't skip like a vinyl record will skip. Even if the needle jumps a little bit, it knows to run continuous tone for a while. So it's.
So you basically need to have an understanding of all 5,000 songs on there.
Oh yeah.
In order to be able to know when to do the different.
Yeah, that's the difference between, since this program's come out, a lot of newbie DJs have got the library, because everybody's got iTunes, everybody downloads music. They've got a friend who's a DJ, so a guy will buy this software and become an instant DJ. He'll have a huge library that a DJ like me would have took 10, 20 years to collect. He'll get that library right away, and he'll consider himself a DJ. The problem with that is he doesn't know the knowledge of that music, the history of that music. If I play a new song now, and I know it sampled something from 20 years ago, I'll even incorporate that old sample. The knowledge of it is very important when you're programming a nightclub, especially, to have the knowledge of all that music and why this sound works, or why they use this sample, why they use this loop. And the knowledge really helps you be a better programmer. Some of these guys are just doing it as a trend, and they don't really get the jobs, because once they do a night at a club, half the dance floor is gone because they're just playing silly stuff.
Now that also shows the waveforms.
Right. I should have brought. There's a AV out on this. We could have showed what I was doing, what I'm looking at on the screen on here. If I'd have thought about it, we'd have done it. But after we're done, if you guys want to look at it and feel it and watch how it works, we can do that. But I'll go back to the non-technical part of it. When scratching, a little history about DJs. Like the first party DJ, I don't know if you guys have studied this yet, but Kool Herc was credited to be one of the first party DJs. He would show up at the park, show up at apartments, condos, wherever he could, and he'd DJ. And he was the first one to buy like 2 copies of each record, and he would get to the favorite section of that record and repeat it. Those were called the breaks. It could have been a popular R&B song, Aretha Franklin, whatever. There was a funky break that the people would just wait for. So he said, rather than wait for it and only have that 4 bars of it, I'm going to keep repeating it. So he would keep repeating it. That's where the whole terminology of b-boy came, because they were called break boys, because they would stand around the party all night, but once that break came that they liked, they would get on the floor and start dancing. So he would repeat that segment. If it was a 4-bar segment, he'd repeat it for like 5 minutes just so they can go off. So he was credited as being like the first party rock style DJ. Another guy who was claimed to have invented the scratch was Grand Wizard Theodore. And the story is he was in his room practicing, and his mom was yelling at him, and he couldn't really hear. So instead of turning down the volume, he put his hand on the record, and she was yelling at him, and he was doing this on accident, and he started doing it. and he was making patterns. And you know, the original DJs were like very good at drums. They were some kind of musician, and they could work the pattern in some kind of rudiment, some kind of sequence that sounded good. So back in the days, I'll show you, they didn't even use the faders. They would just rub the record on beat over a beat, and they call that scratching. It evolutionized to up and down faders, and then when the mixer was invented with a crossfader, it got even faster. I'll demo some of that right now. So back in the days, all they did was go like this. They didn't think about cutting it out, so they just rubbed it. Then they started using the fader, and they could get some of the action to cancel out. So that was with the up and down fader. Then the company started making mixers where you could crossfade, where you could actually go, because when you wanted to slam something, you had to have this one down and this one up all in one swipe, so it was kind of hard. With the crossfade, they were easy to cut instantly. And then scratching became faster. Grandmaster Flash became Grandmaster Flash because this was called flashing, when you just you take a word or anything and just flash it in. That was called the flash. Some other terminologies. I showed you no crossfade. With the crossfade, transform is when you cut it real instant. Real fast. That's called transform. The chirp is where you don't let so much of the sound come in, so it's like real quick. I'll use a better sound. Sound like a bird chirp, that's why they call it chirp. Scribble was just they vibrate their finger on. Just like another one is called a twiddle, where you're using two fingers. You get a faster sound. Stuff like that. So I talked about all that history, showed some DJ stuff. If there's any other questions, or if some of you guys want to look at this, that's about it for me. I'll tell you one more thing. This song that was playing, was Common. This is a mashup I made. You guys heard of mashups, where you would take the vocals or some elements of one song and mix it with another song. The beat that's under here is not the beat that he used. This is an old song called Apache by the Incredible Bongo Band. So I put that beat underneath his vocals and some of his synthesizer just to give it a different flavor. And I'll go to the break. So you notice this whole section will be different. So a lot of DJs make their own mashups just to make the music fresh, or put some of their favorite elements from an old school thing. And that's one of the big catchphrases right now is mashups. But that's it for that. And if you have any questions, or if you want to check this out, or if you have anything else you want to add,